Call the meeting to order. I want to welcome everybody here. This is probably the most people we've had at our financial plan in some time. Thank you for being here. Our financial plan for the City of Steinbach is a document that is many months in progress, and obviously there's a lot of information gathered by our staff, there's a lot of information gathered and looked at by us as council members, and the culmination is the financial plan that is going to be presented here today. And so with that, I look forward to hearing from Brian Horarchuk, who has put a slide presentation together for us and to go through some of the highlights of the financial plan that is being presented here. Brian.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. I'm pleased to be here tonight presenting the city's 2017 financial plan, to the public an overview of some of the programs and projects that are planned for the upcoming year. The annual budget cycle lasts, like you said, almost a full year. It started early last year and concludes tonight with the financial plan public hearing. Throughout the process, input is provided by staff, management, and council. The financial plan that is being presented today is based on the recommendations of council provided at the final review in November. Some of the highlights for 2017 include a municipal mill rate of 13.93 mils, up 0.7 of a mil from 2016. We are still awaiting approval for our utility rates, although no increases were proposed to either the water or sewer rate for 2017. For residential garbage collection, there was actually an error on the slide provided to council. As per the 3-year approved rate plan, there will be approximately a 2% increase for 2017. Fees for land use applications and permits will also see approximately 2.5% increase. The overall capital program for 2017 is $24.6 million. Some of the larger projects planned for the year, as you may have seen outside the council chambers tonight, the supplemental water supply system, performing arts center, and replacement of equipment and infrastructure throughout the city. All of the additional revenue generated by the mill rate increase will be used to fund the additional policing costs as a result of the increased funding requirement now that we have reached or surpassed a population of 15,000. Overall projected revenues for 2017 are just over $28.5 million. Similar to previous years, property taxes make up the largest portion of these revenues, accounting for approximately half of the overall revenue amount. For 2017, there is a property value growth of approximately 1.9%. Commercial properties continue to make up around a quarter of the total property values within the city. With the provincial portioning system, a lower portion of residential property taxes are subject to property tax than commercial property values. And then the city sets a tax rate each year, which is then applied to the property values to generate the tax revenue. As I mentioned earlier, the property tax rate of 13.93 mils is up 0.7 mil from 2016. The 51.7% of the budgeted municipal revenues are from property taxes. 14.8 million is to be raised via property taxes, and of this 13.5 million is from mill rate revenue. The city is also required to collect the education and school taxes on behalf of the province and Hanover School Division. As in previous years, this is projected to make up just over half of the typical tax amount. The average market value for a dwelling in Steinbach is just under $200,000. Based on this and our budgeted municipal mill rate, the average city property taxes work out to just over $100 a month. In addition to regular property taxes, supplementary property taxes are levied on new construction for properties that did not receive a regular property tax bill or where there was an addition or improvement to increase the value of the property. This is expected to provide an additional $500,000 in 2017. Federal and provincial operating grants have also been a consistent source of revenue for the city. The provincial per capita tax sharing grant is expected to reach $2.36 million in 2017, while the federal gas tax grant and municipal programs grant are budgeted at $730,000 and $210,000 respectively. One of the main non-tax revenue sources for the city is from user fees. These are fees paid by those who benefit from the service provided. Some services compete with the open market, but a number of the rates are subsidized for programs to be accessible to everybody. In 2016, development in Steinbach was up slightly from 2015, but still did not come close to the levels seen in the previous few years. The estimates for 2017 include the issuance of 100 dwelling unit permits with $250,000 in permit fee revenue and $750,000 in capital development fees being collected. Each year, the city applies for a number of federal and provincial grants for various projects. The success of these applications varies from year to year, with applications exceeding available funds. A few of the projects for which the city has applied for funding are listed here. Now we will look at some of the programs that are funded by these revenues. Overall, the expenses are equal to the projected revenues of just over $28.5 million. Some of the 2017 programs include waste reduction and recycling program at just over $800,000, support for the Jacob Library at just under $400,000, and various other programs and initiatives as listed. One of the largest city expenses is that of our employees. The total labor cost, including benefits for the upcoming year, is expected to reach $8 million, or almost a third of the city's operating budget. Of this total, the Aquatic Center makes up about 20% of the total labor hours, the largest of any city department. Protective services includes the RCMP, which we have 16 RCMP officers. As I mentioned earlier, the increased funding responsibility in 2017, now that we've reached a population of 15,000 people. Also includes the community services officer who enforces city bylaws, fire protection services. The total cost of these protective services will be approximately $3.8 million in 2017. In 2016, the city reached a total of almost 117 kilometers of road surface. The maintenance for this infrastructure can depend fairly significantly on the weather in any given year, and for 2017 is expected to cost approximately $2.35 million. We provide both curbside and on-demand pickup services to both residential and commercial properties. The cost of providing these services are expected to reach $2.3 million for the upcoming year, which is funded by user fees. Our primary recreation facilities include the Aquatic Center, Arena, A.D. Penner Park, Curling Rink, Soccer Complex, as well as various green space and parks around the city. We continue to get significant use out of all of our available rec facilities, with the expected cost of operating and maintaining these facilities in 2017 to be $3.4 million. Both the number of customers serviced by the water and wastewater utility and the length of the underground infrastructure network continue to grow. The expected cost for the maintenance of this infrastructure and the provision of utility services is expected to reach $3.2 million in 2017. In addition to the typical operating expenses that the city regularly incurs, larger projects also require a significant source of funds. Some of this funding comes from reserve funds that have been saved in previous years, while other projects will require debt funding. Some of the main projects for the upcoming year include the Performing Arts Centre, supplemental water supply system, and some underground infrastructure renewal. The total capital program for the year is expected to cost just over $24.5 million. The city will periodically issue debt in order to add or renew various infrastructure or facilities throughout the city. Each loan will fund a specific project. In 2017, both the Performing Arts Centre and the supplemental water supply system have a debt component as part of their funding sources. This is expected to create $5 million of new debt, while just over $2.5 million of previously issued debt will be paid off throughout the year. The city continues to use a 5-year amortization term for all of its debt, allowing us to borrow at lower interest rates than if a longer term was used. Our average interest rate for 2017 will be just over 2.5%, while the projected debt balance at the end of 2017 is expected to be $10 million. Payments that are required to be made for previously issued debt will total $2.8 million in 2017. Of this amount, just under $200,000 is the interest portion. Funding for these debt payments is raised through property taxation, and for 2017, 2.3 mills will be required to raise the necessary funds. This equates to about 16.5% of the total city tax rate. The annual payments required has remained fairly steady for the last few years, but this is projected to start to increase with the growth of the city and its corresponding needs. And finally, a longer-term overview of some of the expected requirements in future years. The 2018 program is currently budgeted at $23.7 million, which includes infrastructure renewal and the completion of the Performing Arts Centre and the supplementary water supply system. Beyond that, programs of $6.3 million, $7.1 million, and $4 million are currently estimated for the following 3 years. That concludes the presentation of the 2017 financial plan. Thank you, members of council. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them now.
Okay, thank you very much. This is a public hearing, so I will open it up to the public at this time. Are there any questions at this time from the public or the gallery? Any questions? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing in regards to this, but are there any other questions for Mr. Hrarchuk at this time? Thank you. Appreciate you making the presentation. I know last year you had quite the cold, and this year you're in fine form. Thank you. All right, Council. Now, normally we do need to wait for the first and second reading of this. We will, however, we do normally have, however, a motion to approve the budget and financial plan in principle, and so I'm looking for that right now. I will need a motion to approve the financial plan in principle. Councillor Penner. Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Fair. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. City Council has had an opportunity to review this financial plan very closely. We've looked at what we feel are sustainable levels of debt, as well as ability to pay down that debt. We've looked at the priorities that we feel are necessary for the city to continue to meet its growth demands, and to continue to provide the level of service that we've always wanted to provide for its citizens.
Thank you. Councillor Fair, anything further?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I think that we've put a lot of work into this. We've seen all these numbers before. They're not new to us. There are some things here that we probably would have rather not seen, like we would have liked to seen our population remain at under 15,000 so that we could have contained our policing costs for another couple of years. That didn't happen. And so I think we've been fairly frugal with this budget, and I think it's always good to grow incrementally, and not that we have to leapfrog all of a sudden and make big changes when the need arises. So I think it's something that needs to be done.
Thank you. Further discussion? Councillor Swagstra?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As if every year, a budget is always a balancing act. There's always items that one likes and items that one doesn't like. And so, for example, some of the items in the budget that are good include our continuing support for our city programs. We appreciate the work of our solid waste department, our public works, our parks and rec, and that funding continues, and so it should. There are also a number of good capital programs in here that moving ahead with enhancing the city's water supply. That makes sense. It also makes sense to our asphalt overlay program, that we're going to continue that as well. So that is something that we can fully support. In terms of the RCMP aspect, we recognize that that is out of our control in terms of the amount that we have to pay. We have the same number of officers, and we're having to pay more. There are items in the budget that I don't like, and one in particular is by far the largest capital item in the budget, and I won't speak long about it, but there it is right there, $24 million for a performing arts center, $12 million for this year, $12 million for next year, borrowing $2.5 million this year. It dwarfs all of the other capital plans, and so obviously I've gone on record saying I don't support the project when it's that level of magnitude. And so when I look at balancing, that there are many good things in the budget, but I have a real problem with voting for a budget where I fundamentally disagree with what is by far the biggest line item in here. And yes, I realize that at this point it does not affect the mill rate at this point, but the budget is not just simply setting a mill rate. The budget is an overall plan and a direction for the city. And I do not support the capital budget, which is part of this budget, where the Performing Arts Centre is by far the largest item, so I will therefore be voting against the budget.
Thank you. Further discussion? Councillor Siemens.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll vote in favor of this budget. I think there's a lot of good things in the budget, as mentioned. I think there's also there's extra costs, and we've talked about the policing already, and that is a 30% increase from years past. We've also given, over the last 3 years, we've given an average of 2.5% increase to our staff. Plus, there's some new hires this year that are in the administration level with in the engineering department and in admin. So there's a higher cost with our staff, as well as our fire department, our protection services. There's also an $80,000 addition there too, as we're looking for 8 to 12 new recruits to join our fire department. With the census also comes new revenues. We saw those numbers as well, but we're not quite clear when they are all going to take effect. And we will have our higher development fees as well for user groups. Over the last number of years, our development fees and our housing starts have been reduced over the last number of years. So generally, our cost of growth is covered with the additional taxes that we do. That is a standard. But the big difference this year is the RCMP costs and cost of policing. So with all those things, and I think it is important that we move in this direction, that we add 0.7 of a mil to cover those additional policing costs.
Thank you. Further discussion? Councillor Funk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Year after year, we work on budgets, and they're good budgets, and our plans are very aggressive to go forward into infrastructure renewal. And for those things, I've always supported them. And we've got a lot of good projects in this budget. This is a good budget. But because of the biggest line item, like Councillor Schweitzer said, 12 million this year, 12 million next year, the PAC, I see us heading down a road of borrowing. And I think and as the third last slide did say, borrowing costs will increase. And I just want to caution ourselves to not go down that road. The borrowing is going to immediately it takes money that we can use other places and other things we can do in order to pay for the borrowing. For that reason, I will not support this.
Further discussion? Anything in closing? Sorry.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I guess I'm not sure. I think we laid it out when Councillor Swagster made a motion roughly a year and a half ago to support the Performing Arts Centre to the tune of $7.5 million, providing the rest of the funds came from other sources. We have not committed to anything beyond that as far as I can tell. So in my opinion, we are supporting a $7.5 million contribution to that project, not a $12 million. It is all part of it, but it is going to come in the form of grants. So I think it's a little bit, I don't know if it's unfair to look at it from that perspective, but to me, it's just like we have not changed. We made a decision to support it to $7.5 million, even though that's not maybe my priority. That's what we decided to do. And I think that we need to stay the course. If we don't get all the puzzle pieces in place, it's not going to happen anyway. So if it happens, we're committed to $7.5 million. And so I don't see the issue there.
Thank you. Councillor Swagster.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to briefly point out that when that motion was made a year and a half ago, the cost estimates we had were dramatically different. The feasibility of the project was dramatically different. The numbers are very different now. This is now going to be our second time voting on a $24 million art center. I voted against it the first time in December. I'm now voting against it the second time now in February.
Anything in closing? Council, we've obviously worked hard at this budget, and we've worked at it collectively. We've been looking at it for almost a year, and we're now here at a spot where we can all pick things that we like and would wish we could add or change, and but it's about collectively working at it together. And so this is a document that reflects that collective work. It also reflects the decisions that we've been making over the last year and the hard work we're all putting into making sure that we get funding in place for projects that we've committed to as a group. And so this budget and this financial plan helps us follow through. Obviously, we all could pick and choose a few things that we'd like to see different, but in the end, we as council have to end up in a spot that reflects the community and reflects how we've seen it over the last year and reflects the information that we've been getting. And so with that, I'll obviously vote in favor of the financial plan. Call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. We'll now adjourn the financial plan, and we will have a council meeting starting in about 6 minutes.